I have been using my stencils from the latest release non-stop, and in today's video I'm going to share 3 different ways to create some really kind of unique backgrounds with the stencils. In some ways you might not usually think to, but it creates some stunning results in the end. In case if you're interested, everything that I used in today's video is listed and linked down below. Without further ado, let's get right into the video. Alright, so for this first technique, I'm using the Leafy Green stencil, and I'm going to place it onto my piece of stark white cardstock here, and then magnet it down in the station, and we can start off with our blending. Now I've shared this in another video, but I wanted to share it here as well. With this stencil, I'm going to first start off by blending with Tropical Tango, and I really like this nice kind of leafy green teal color. And what I've done here is I've actually started on the edge and I've been layering up the color. Since these are translucent dye inks, the more you blend with a heavier hand, the darker the color is going to get. And then I faded it off into the center. So that's kind of a cool look you can do. But the real point of this technique is to share how this stencil really can be used. So if you have a stencil with more sporadic designs or geometric designs, what I'm going to do is that's how I had it lined up. I'm actually going to flip the stencil and rotate it a little bit, and then I'm going to ink blend right in the spaces. Now this one I really designed to work like that, but I've shared lots of other techniques in the past. I'll leave a link in the top right corner to a video all about rotating and flipping your stencils, because you can get some really cool effects, even with stencils that weren't meant to do this. Now what I really like about this is you can have a more sporadic background, or you could fill it in with more leaves, whether you use 2 different colors or things like that to create this really cool background. Then once I lift that off, you'll see that awesome looking background that you get in the end. And so you could have it either way, a little bit more simple or more filled in with the leaves. And I love the look of this background, and I'm really glad that I designed it like this, so it's a little bit multi-purpose as well. Now I'm going to finish off this card. I actually die cut that leaf background out into an oval, and then I die cut another scalloped oval, and I'm just blending on my Tropical Tango around the edge. And this is going to create a little bit of a border of color and really match the background exactly. So to create your own colored cardstock, it's really easy to do. I'll adhere the leaf background down onto that, and then I'm going to go in with the Bird Buddies stamp set and use that little peacock from this set. This is a 6x9 stamp set, so it's got lots of large images, and this is going to really stand out as the focal point on our card. So to color this in, I've taken some of my Simon Hurley Create inks, smooshed them down onto a craft sheet, and now I'm just taking a water brush and picking up that color to do some watercoloring. This is super simple and easy to do, and it creates some really awesome effects in the end. And I find that if you want a little bit of a darker color, you can go back in with a little bit less water and dip your brush back into that ink and start shading a little bit. I also find if you want to add some shadows and make sure your color doesn't bleed, you saw my heat tool there. I heat set in between different layers to make sure that the color doesn't bleed or run into areas that I don't want it to. So I'm just going in with blues, greens, teals, yellows, and oranges to kind of fill in this peacock and give it some really bright colors. And the 6 colors that just released are absolutely beautiful to use along with your peacock to create some really awesome effects. So I'm just finishing off watercoloring that, and then I'm going to stamp down my sentiment. This is a sentiment from the Bird Buddies stamp set that says "Shake it till you make it." And I think I did one that says "It's your special day" as well. And heat embossed those on black cardstock in white, and then I've adhered everything together. I'm going to add a little bit of Wink of Stella shimmer and shine onto the peacock, and that finishes off this card. So that background is super awesome. It really grounds that peacock, and I love that little fun bird on the front of our card as well. So much fun. Okay, so for our next technique, I'm going to be taking the Lou stencil, and you want kind of a stencil with more geometric designs or lines or patterns with this one. And so for this, I'm going to follow the straight lines in my design to create different striping effects by masking. Now, if you've followed me for a long time, you know that masking is not my jam. However, this one is super easy. I just cut 2 strips of cardstock pretty thick and then added some purple tape to each end, and this was super simple. Then I just moved those down each time to make sure that it followed the design, and I didn't have to worry about tape on the actual cardstock that could possibly rip it. So this was super easy to do. I went down the stencil and blended in some rainbow patterns using my ink colors, and it created this really fun background. I like that it really follows the design and really complements the way that it's designed. So really any stencil in your collection that has this cool geometric design that you can follow the lines is a great stencil to use with this technique, and maybe try masking off some of those patterns. Now, as I was moving the paper down each time, you'll see that the red ends are now on the outside. I'm going to move into this orange pattern, and every time I went down to the next one, I kind of flipped and rotated the pieces of paper so that I'm not using that same side that I just used with the last ink color. Because the ink can sometimes be a little bit wet, since you're doing it so quickly, I want to use kind of the clean side each time, which might not make a ton of sense. You'll kind of see as I'm doing it here. If it's more of a similar color like two greens like you see I'm doing here, I just stuck with the same side. So it doesn't really matter, but sometimes it can muddy up your colors if you're not being careful. So I'm just finishing off by blending out with some Tropical Tango. I added a little bit of blue with Clear Skies, and then I think I finished it off with some Crown Me purple. But I really love how bright this turned out. It was a really simple thing to do. It's not super difficult, and you could do it with lots of different stencils. Just some creative masking here and there gives you some really awesome effects when you're blending. And I liked this one because I kind of designed it off of tiles, and it gave me that kind of feeling in the end after they were all masked off. Now to finish it off, since I can't help myself, I sprayed it with a little bit of water since my inks react with water, and then I can lift that off with a paper towel, and it just gives it a little bit more texture and interest, and it kind of gets the inks to move and blend a little bit. So once I peeled that off, it's kind of that awesome reveal. I love how this background turned out, and I wanted to do something simple on top. So you can either finish it off just with a large sentiment and keep it that simple. However, I went in with the Flower Picking Friends stamp set, and I'm using one of those larger flowers to create a really elegant look on today's card. So I wanted to keep the flower pretty simple too, so all I did was stamp it down in some jet black archival ink. And one thing about archival ink that I really have enjoyed is you can actually quickly throw a clear coat of heat embossing powder over top of it. Since it stays a little bit wet on that surface, it's not wet enough where you can smudge it. However, you can definitely throw some clear embossing powder over it quickly. I like to do this because then it's easier to stay in the lines with your watercolor, and it gives it a little bit of a darker black look. Now for this, I really quickly went in with some, I think it's Tropical Tango, but I really made sure that was super light. I didn't use the color to its full intensity. Just by adding lots of water, you get more of a washed down color. And then I did the same thing with Woof, which is my gray color. I went in and just watered down some of that color and added it where any of the shading would be. So I didn't go in and make this a super colorful rose. I wanted it to be more monochromatic so you get a really awesome effect on the card, and it really allows this image to stand out but the background to really pop against this flower, which I thought was really awesome in the end. So here I'm just painting it in quickly on some watercolor cardstock, and then I'll quickly cut out this flower image and we can add it onto our card. So here is that finished flower in the end. I absolutely love how that looks, just simple watercoloring. And then I added everything onto the card and added a thinking of you sentiment from that Flower Picking Friends stamp set. But I just love how this background really shines with that color in the background and the masking that we did. Now moving into our third background, I wanted to show you how to do some embossing with stencils. I know some people don't really think of this usually, but it's a really great technique to get a little bit more use out of your stencils and almost use it as kind of a background stamp or as a resist. So I'm going to go in here with some clear sticky embossing ink, and I'm just going to add it through my stencil using a mini ink blending tool sponge. I like to keep a clean one of these because I do this quite a bit, and adding sticky ink is really easy to do with one of these little sponges. So once I'm done with that, I'll throw over a coat of clear or white embossing powder, and then I'm going to heat that so we can move on to our next step. You just want to heat it until it's nice and shiny. And then I'm going to go in on my stark white cardstock and just do some quick and simple blending. This was really easy to do, and you'll see how really nicely these colors blend together. I did some softer colors just by using a little bit of a lighter hand. I used some Guppy, and then here I used Piggyback. And now Piggyback is a much lighter color than lots of them for my line, but it really kind of, when you add it together, it almost softens down the other colors and makes it look more like a pastel background, and I absolutely love that look. So adding Piggyback into the collection and on your backgrounds is really a simple thing to do to kind of soften all of the colors and make it look a little bit lighter. So as I'm blending here, I just love the new colors that it's making in between. It makes a little bit of a green between Guppy and Clear Skies, and Clear Skies looks great with Piggyback as well. So I just really encourage you though to kind of pull out whatever colors you want and really just kind of make your own blends and mix things together. I find lots of color combos, kind of just trying things out. Because these inks are super easy to blend, you can see how beautifully they blend, and it takes a long time to create a brown or kind of a muddy color. So just kind of keep trying new things. Then I'll go in with my water and spray it down over top since I cannot stand myself, and it just creates a fun little texture. But if you just want this smooth background, just don't spray any water on top of it. So once I'm done with that, here is how that background looks. I love the color, but I also love how we were able to take our stencil and get the design that usually would be inked, but instead resist it with some embossing powder. So here I'm using the Encouraging Words stamp set, and I'm just going to use the You Are Perfect Just the Way You Are stamp. I'm going to heat emboss that in white on black cardstock, and then I'll add everything together onto my card, and that really finishes off nicely with that big sentiment. But lots of stencils work beautifully when you heat emboss them and create this beautiful resist pattern. Alright guys, I hope you really enjoyed that video as much as I loved creating it. Be sure to leave a comment down below letting me know which card from today's video was your favorite. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a big thumbs up and be sure to hit that subscribe button to never miss another crafting video like this one from me. Alright guys, I'll see you very, very soon for another card making and crafting video. Have a great day. Bye!